There's something haunting about a desert, endless stretches of sand, silent and still, holding secrets that time forgot. But what if I told you that beneath those windswept dunes lie entire cities, lost kingdoms, and treasures that could rewrite history? These aren't just stories from legends or myths. They're real discoveries waiting to be unearthed. Today, we're diving into the 25 greatest discoveries buried by desert sands civilizations, lost to shifting dunes, a journey that will take us from the sun-baked ruins of ancient trade hubs to the buried tombs of forgotten rulers. These aren't just relics of the past, they're puzzle pieces that help us understand how civilizations rose, thrived, and vanished without a trace. Picture this, a bustling marketplace, alive with the chatter of merchants and the clink of gold, now silenced under layers of sand. Or a grand temple, once the heart of a thriving city, its walls now crumbling beneath the weight of centuries. How does a place so full of life simply disappear? The answer lies in the relentless march of nature, shifting dunes, scorching winds, and the slow, inevitable passage of time. But thanks to the tireless work of archaeologists and explorers, these lost worlds are coming back to light, revealing stories of human ingenuity, ambition, and sometimes tragedy. What makes these discoveries so extraordinary isn't just their age or their gold, it's what they tell us about ourselves. Every artifact, every crumbling wall, is a message from the past, a reminder that even the mightiest empires can fade, but their legacies endure. From the buried libraries of ancient scholars to the hidden tombs of pharaohs, each find is a window into a world we thought was lost forever. So, are you ready to step into the desert and uncover the mysteries buried beneath the sand? Let's begin our adventure one grain of sand at a time. Deserts have a way of playing tricks on the eye. What seems empty at first glance is often teeming with hidden stories. The very conditions that make these landscapes so harsh for survival also make them perfect time capsules. Without heavy rainfall to erode structures or dense vegetation to obscure them, ancient cities stand frozen in the sand, waiting to be rediscovered. Take the Sahara, where the dry air has preserved delicate artifacts like textiles and wooden tools that would have crumbled to dust in wetter climates. Or the Atacama Desert in South America, where the oldest mummies in the world, some over 7,000 years old, were found with their skin and hair eerily intact. It's as if the desert itself is a meticulous archivist, locking away fragments of the past in its endless vault of dunes. But the relationship between sand and history isn't just about preservation, it's also a game of hide and seek. Wind reshapes the landscape constantly, burying a temple one century and uncovering it the next. This is why archaeologists often return to the same sites year after year, knowing that each storm might reveal a new clue. In the Taclomacken Desert, explorers have stumbled upon entire Buddhist monasteries that were swallowed by the dunes, their vibrant murals still glowing with color after centuries underground. And in Egypt's western desert, the shifting sands have exposed lost oases that once supported thriving communities along forgotten trade routes. What makes these discoveries so thrilling is the unpredictability. Unlike ruins buried under modern cities, where layers of history are stacked in orderly fashion, desert archaeology is full of surprises. One day, a team might brush away a thin layer of sand to find a child's toy, left behind as if the owner just stepped away. The next, they could uncover a royal tomb, its treasures untouched by looters because the desert kept its secret so well. Every find feels like a conversation with the past, a whisper from people who lived, loved, and built their worlds in what we now see as wastelands. And perhaps most fascinating of all is how these discoveries rewrite what we thought we knew. The deserts have a way of humbling us, proving that civilizations we considered isolated were actually connected by vast networks of trade and ideas. A Roman coin found in the sands of Arabia, or Chinese silk buried in an Egyptian grave, these aren't just objects. They're proof that the world was always more interconnected than we realized, long before planes or the internet. So the next time you look at a desert, remember, beneath that quiet expanse lies not just sand, but the echoes of countless lives, each with a story the earth has been saving just for us. Deep in the heart of the Rub al Khali, the vast and unforgiving desert known as the Empty Quarter, whispers of a legendary city captivated explorers for centuries. Yuba, often called the Atlantis of the sands, was said to be a place of unimaginable wealth, a glittering oasis where caravans laden with frankincense once converged. For generations, scholars debated whether it was real or just a tale spun by traders to fire the imagination. Then, in the late 20th century, modern technology unveiled the truth. Satellite images revealed faint geometric patterns beneath the sand, traces of walls, towers, and roads that matched the descriptions from ancient texts. The myth had a foundation in fact. When archaeologists finally reached the site, they uncovered a city frozen in time. Massive fortifications hinted at Yuba's importance, built to protect its riches from raiders. Towers stood like silent sentinels, their crumbled heights still imposing against the desert sky. But perhaps most telling were the artifacts, fragments of pottery from distant lands, weights used for measuring precious frankincense resin, and even remnants of the incense itself, still fragrant after centuries buried in the sand. These weren't just relics, they were proof of a bustling trade hub that connected Arabia to the Mediterranean, India, and beyond. What makes Yuba's discovery so extraordinary isn't just the validation of a legend, it's how it rewrote our understanding of ancient commerce. Frankincense was more than a luxury. It was the oil of the ancient world, used in rituals, medicines, and even embalming. Controlling its trade meant controlling wealth, and Yuba sat at the crossroads of it all. The city's sudden disappearance, likely swallowed by a collapsing limestone cavern beneath it, adds a layer of tragedy to its story. One day, a thriving metropolis. The next vanished without a trace, leaving only echoes in the accounts of travelers and the shifting dunes that hid it for over a millennium. Yet Yuba's legacy endures. Its ruins remind us that even the grandest civilizations are at the mercy of nature's whims, and they challenge us to reconsider other so-called myths. What if they, too, are waiting beneath the sands just beyond our sight? The desert guards its secrets closely, but with every technological leap we peel back another layer. Yuba was once a fairy tale. Now it's a testament to human perseverance, a clue that history's greatest mysteries might still be out there, hidden in plain sight. The Bahariya Oasis seems like an unlikely place for a discovery that would rewrite history. Just a quiet patch of green amid Egypt's vast western desert. But in 1996, a donkey's misstep changed everything. When the animal's hoof broke through the ground, it revealed not just sand, but gold, the glint of a gilded mask peering back from the darkness. What followed was one of the most astonishing finds of the century. The Valley of the Golden Mummies, a sprawling necropolis housing thousands of mummies, each more ornate than the last. This wasn't just another burial site. These mummies belonged to a forgotten era, the Greco-Roman period, when Egyptian traditions collided with the influences of foreign rulers. The masks adorning the dead weren't the familiar stoic faces of pharaohs, but lifelike portraits, their eyes wide and expressive, their curls meticulously painted. Some wore crowns of gold leaf, others had delicate jewelry pressed into their wrappings. The craftsmanship was Egyptian, but the style, the rosy cheeks, the individualized features whispered of Greek and Roman artistry. What's truly remarkable is what this discovery says about the people who lived here. The sheer scale of the necropolis suggests Bahariya was far from a lonely outpost. Instead, it was likely a thriving hub, a melting pot where cultures blended seamlessly. Imagine a bustling oasis town, its markets filled with traders speaking half a dozen languages, its temples honoring both Egyptian gods and foreign deities. The mummies themselves tell this story. Some were buried with amulets of Anubis, others with coins bearing the faces of Roman emperors, but the biggest surprise: these weren't just elites. While a few tombs held nobles in sarcophagi of limestone, most were ordinary citizens, merchants, artisans, families laid to rest with surprising opulence. This challenges everything we thought we knew about the region. The Western Desert wasn't a barren wasteland. It was home to a vibrant, multicultural society that prospered against the odds. And then, like so many desert civilizations, it vanished. Was it climate change, a shift in trade routes? The sands haven't given up all their secrets yet. But every golden face uncovered is a voice from the past, reminding us that history is never as simple as it seems. The desert doesn't just bury cities, it hides the stories of people who dared to thrive where no one thought they could. Timbuktu rises from the Sahara like a mirage, a city of golden sandstone and winding alleys, where the air hums with the ghosts of scholars past. This wasn't just a stop along the caravan routes, it was a beacon of knowledge, a place where the written word defied the harshness of the desert. At its height during the Mali Empire, Timbuktu's libraries held hundreds of thousands of manuscripts, their pages filled with everything from advanced mathematical theorems to recipes for medicinal herbs. These weren't mere records, they were the lifeblood of a scholarly tradition that stretched across continents, proving Africa's intellectual might long before European universities dominated the narrative. What's astonishing is how these treasures survived. When invaders threatened or the desert winds howled, families buried their libraries literally. Manuscripts were tucked into chests and hidden beneath floorboards, sealed in clay jars and stashed in caves. For generations, guardians passed down the secret locations, often at great personal risk. One librarian recounted how his ancestors would disguise the texts as everyday objects, wrapping them in cloth to look like bundles of firewood. The desert, usually a force of erasure, became an unlikely ally, its dry air-preserving ink that would have faded in more humid climates. The contents of these manuscripts shatter old stereotypes. A 15th century text on astronomy corrects Ptolemy's calculations with startling precision. Medical treatises detail surgical procedures and herbal remedies that modern science is only now beginning to validate. There are contracts showing sophisticated credit systems and philosophical debates that rival those of the Enlightenment. These pages reveal a world where Timbuktu wasn't just absorbing knowledge, it was generating it, feeding a network of learning that reached as far as Baghdad and Andalusia. Today, the race to save these documents feels as urgent as ever. Climate change threatens the fragile paper, and political instability looms. But there's hope. Teams of archivists, many of them descendants of the original guardians, are digitizing the manuscripts page by page. Infrared imaging reveals faded text, and high-resolution scans make the works accessible to scholars worldwide. One particularly poignant discovery: a margin note in a 12th century Quran, where a scribe apologized for his shaky handwriting. His hands were trembling from hunger as he worked. Even in hardship, the drive to preserve knowledge never wavered. Timbuktu's libraries are more than a historical curiosity. they're a defiant rebuttal to the idea that deserts are barren of culture. The sands tried to erase them, conquerors tried to burn them, yet they endure. Each rescued manuscript is a testament to human curiosity, a reminder that ideas can outlast empires. So the next time someone calls a desert empty, remember, beneath the surface, whole worlds of wisdom are waiting to be uncovered. High above the sun-baked plains of southern Peru, an ancient mystery stretches across the desert floor, enormous drawings so vast they can only be fully seen from the sky. The Nazca Lines, etched into the earth over 2,000 years ago, form a sprawling gallery of geometric shapes and creatures both real and imagined. A hummingbird with wings wider than a football field, a spider so precisely drawn its legs mirror the proportions of living species, a monkey with a spiraling tail that seems to dance across the landscape. These aren't mere scratches in the dirt, they're masterpieces of scale and precision, created by a culture that left no written records to explain their purpose. How did the Nazca people, without flight or modern tools, design such colossal artworks with near-perfect symmetry? The answer lies in astonishingly simple yet brilliant techniques. Archaeologists believe teams of artists used ropes and wooden stakes to plot out shapes, scaling up small models by maintaining consistent ratios. They'd peel away the reddish-brown topsoil to reveal lighter sediment beneath, creating lines that contrast sharply with the surrounding desert. The real marvel, these designs have survived centuries because the region's climate, almost no rain, minimal wind, acts like a natural conservator. Unlike murals that fade or wooden artifacts that rot, the Nazca Lines endure as the desert itself holds its breath around them. But why go to such lengths to create art that couldn't be seen from the ground? Theories abound. Some scholars argue the lines formed a celestial calendar, with certain shapes aligning with solstices or constellations. Others suggest they were sacred pathways for rituals, walked by priests to commune with deities. Then there's the haunting possibility that they were meant for eyes, not human offerings to gods who watched from above, or even attempts to signal beings beyond our world. The most compelling clue might lie in the Nazca's own survival in this harsh environment. Many of the animal glyphs represent species tied to water, like the hummingbird, a pollinator of desert blooms. Could these lines have been prayers for rain, sketched on a scale meant to catch the attention of the heavens? Modern technology has only deepened the intrigue. Drones and satellite imaging have uncovered hundreds of previously unknown lines, including humanoid figures and surreal beings with multiple heads. In 2020, artificial intelligence helped identify a massive cat glyph hidden on a hillside, its languid form unnoticed for millennia until erosion revealed faint traces. Each new discovery raises more questions than answers, a reminder that the desert still guards its secrets fiercely. What's undeniable is the Nazca Lines' power to humble us. In an age of GPS and laser measurements, these ancient artists achieved precision that still stuns engineers today. Their work transcends time, not just in its endurance, but in its ability to spark wonder across generations. The lines don't just connect shapes on the ground, they connect us to the minds of people who, like us, looked at the vast, empty desert and saw not nothingness, but a canvas for the impossible. The first glimpse of Petra takes your breath away, not just because of its scale, but because of how effortlessly it seems to emerge from the stone itself. The famous treasury, with its ornate facade glowing rose gold in the desert sun, is only the beginning. This was a city carved entirely into the cliffs by the Nabateans, a nomadic tribe who turned their knowledge of the desert into an empire. Imagine walking through the narrow Sick, a winding canyon passage where the walls tower hundreds of feet overhead, their striations of red and orange rock swirling like melted wax. Then suddenly the path opens and there it is, a masterpiece of architecture not built upward from the ground, but painstakingly chiseled downward from the living rock. What's even more remarkable than Petra's beauty is how it survived in one of the most water-scarce regions on Earth. The Nabateans didn't just endure the desert, they mastered it. Their secret, an ingenious network of channels, dams, and cisterns that captured every precious drop of rainwater. They carved gutters into cliff faces to divert flash floods, built ceramic pipelines to funnel water across miles, and stored reserves in hidden reservoirs. At its peak, Petra's system could support a population of 30,000, with lush gardens and even public fountains, a staggering feat in a place where annual rainfall could fit in a teacup. Walk through the ruins today, and you'll see how this engineering brilliance blended with cultural ambition. The treasury's columns show Greek influence, while the grand monastery echoes Egyptian styles. The theater, seating thousands, could rival Rome's. This wasn't just a trading hub for spices and silk, it was a crossroads of ideas. Camel caravans brought more than goods, they carried artistic traditions, religious beliefs, and innovations that the Nabateans absorbed and made their own. Even their tombs, some simple, others grand enough for kings, tell stories of a society that valued both community and individual legacy. Then, around the 7th century, Petra vanished from the world's memory. Earthquakes crumbled its structures and shifting trade routes left it isolated. The desert, which had once been tamed, slowly reclaimed it. For over 1,000 years, the city existed only in Bedouin legends until a Swiss explorer, disguised as a pilgrim, followed their clues and stumbled upon the treasury in 1812. The rediscovery shocked the world, proving that even the most magnificent civilizations could be swallowed by time. Yet Petra's true lesson isn't about loss. It's about resilience. The Nabateans didn't just survive the desert, they thrived by listening to it, learning its rhythms, and turning its challenges into opportunities. Their city stands as a testament to human adaptability, a reminder that even in the harshest landscapes, creativity can bloom. The next time you face an obstacle, think of Petra, proof that what seems impossible might just be waiting for the right hands to carve it into being. The dry, brittle cliffs overlooking the Dead Sea seem like the last place you'd expect to stumble upon a library. But in 1947, a Bedouin shepherd tossing rocks into a cave heard the sound of shattering pottery, and with it, history cracked wide open. What he'd found were the Dead Sea Scrolls, a collection of texts so well preserved in the desert's arid embrace that the ink still gleamed on the parchment after 2,000 years. These weren't just random scraps, they included the oldest surviving copies of the Hebrew Bible, along with hymns, legal documents, and even community rules from a long-vanished Jewish sect. It was as if the desert had been holding its breath, waiting for the right moment to exhale these words back into the world. What makes the scrolls extraordinary isn't just their age, but how they rewrite our understanding of history. Before their discovery, the earliest complete Hebrew Bible dated to the 9th century, but here were manuscripts 1,000 years older, their wording nearly identical to what we read today. This wasn't just confirmation of textual accuracy, it was proof of a living tradition, passed down with astonishing fidelity across generations. Yet the scrolls also held surprises, alternative versions of familiar stories, like a psalm praising God not just as a deliverer, but as a mother eagle sheltering her young. These variations reveal a faith that was still evolving, its boundaries more fluid than we'd imagined. Equally fascinating are the glimpses of daily life tucked between sacred verses. There are property deeds, marriage contracts, and even a copper scroll listing buried treasures, none of which have ever been found. One particularly poignant text details the rituals of a separatist group called the Essenes, who washed themselves obsessively in the desert sun, believing purity would hasten the coming of God's kingdom. Their ink-stained fingers left smudges on the parchment, tiny, human imperfections that bridge the gap between ancient devotion and our own search for meaning. The desert's role in this story can't be overstated. The caves of Qumran, tucked into limestone cliffs, created a natural time capsule. The dry air prevented mold, the constant temperature kept the parchment supple, and even the darkness acted like a cosmic pause button on decay. But there's irony here too. The same region where the biblical Sodom and Gomorrah were said to have been wiped out became the unlikely guardian of sacred texts. The desert, often a symbol of desolation, turned out to be the perfect archivist. Today, the scrolls challenge us in unexpected ways. Advanced imaging techniques reveal letters hidden for centuries, words scraped away and rewritten, margins filled with scribbled notes. Some fragments are so delicate they can only be handled with tweezers. Others are digitized for the world to study, but perhaps their greatest lesson is about fragility. These texts survived empires and upheavals not because they were locked in vaults, but because someone, whether a devout scribe or a fleeing rebel, chose to wrap them in linen, seal them in jars, and trust them to the silence of a cave. In an age where information feels endless but ephemeral, the Dead Sea Scrolls remind us that the most enduring messages aren't shouted, but whispered, and sometimes the desert is the only listener wise enough to keep them safe. The Skeleton Coast isn't just a name, it's a warning. Stretching along Namibia's shoreline, this desolate stretch of beach earned its grim title from the bones of whales, seals, and sailors that once littered the sand. But the most haunting relics aren't skeletons of flesh and bone. They're the skeletal remains of ships, jutting from the dunes like the ribs of some long-dead beast. This is where the Namib Desert meets the Atlantic in a deadly embrace, where fog-bound shores and shifting sandbars have lured vessels to their doom for centuries. Walk far enough and you'll stumble upon a surreal sight. The prow of a 19th century schooner emerging from the sand as if the earth itself is swallowing it whole. What makes these wrecks so mesmerizing is how the desert preserves them. Unlike ocean shipwrecks battered by salt and waves, these stranded vessels are mummified in the dry air. The Eduard Bohlen, a German cargo ship that ran aground in 1909, lies a full quarter-mile inland, its rusted hull now surrounded by dunes instead of water. Climb inside and you might still find bottles of wine from its cargo, their labels faded but legible, or chunks of coal spilled across the sand like black pearls. It's as if time stopped the moment the ship touched shore, leaving everything frozen in a snapshot of disaster. But the real stories aren't in the artifacts, they're in the choices that led these ships here. The Skeleton Coast is a navigator's nightmare where the Bengla Current collides with howling winds, creating a fog so thick it clings to the skin. Sailors who survived the wrecks often faced a crueler fate, stranded in a desert with no fresh water, where the nearest settlement might be a month's walk away. Diaries recovered from some wrecks speak of desperation, men drinking seawater until they went mad, or carving messages into driftwood in the faint hope someone would find them. One Portuguese caravel, lost in the 1600s, held a final note tucked inside a tin: "God have mercy on our souls." Yet amid the tragedy, there's strange beauty. The Dunedin Star, a British liner wrecked in 1942, became an unlikely lifeline for the local Himba people, who scavenged its wood and metal for tools. The desert, ever opportunistic, repurposes what it takes. And then there's the mystery of the missing. Some wrecks show signs of hasty abandonment, meals half-eaten, lifeboats gone but no trace of the crew. Did they vanish into the dunes, or did the shifting sands bury their remains too deep to find? Today, these ghost ships serve as eerie monuments to human ambition. They remind us that the sea isn't the only force that can swallow a vessel whole sometimes. The land itself is the greater threat, but they also whisper something hopeful. Even in oblivion, these wrecks endure. The desert hasn't erased them, it's kept their stories safe, waiting for the right moment to let the wind uncover another chapter. So the next time you hear the phrase, "lost at sea," remember, some journeys don't end in the water. They end in the sand, scattered across the Sahara like forgotten chess pieces. The crumbling walls of ancient fortresses tell a story of defiance. These weren't just military strongholds, they were lifelines built by cultures determined to carve out survival in one of Earth's most merciless landscapes. The Garamantes, a civilization that thrived in modern-day Libya between 500 BC and 700 CE, mastered this balance. Their fortress cities rose from the desert, protected by walls of sun-baked mud brick, while beneath their feet snaked an engineering marvel. Thousands of miles of underground tunnels called fagaras, channeling water from hidden aquifers to fields and homes. Picture a citadel surrounded by nothing but scorching dunes, its gates guarded not just against human enemies, but against the creeping advance of the sand itself. What's astonishing isn't just that these fortresses existed, it's how they flourished. The Garamantes didn't merely endure the desert, they weaponized it. Their forts doubled as way stations for caravans crossing the Sahara, offering water and shelter in exchange for gold, ivory, and salt. Inside the walls, courtyards bloomed with date palms and barley, nourished by those intricate irrigation systems. Archaeologists have found olive pits and grape seeds in the ruins, proof that even in the harshest terrain, life could be abundant with the right knowledge. The desert wasn't just an obstacle, it was a moat shielding these communities from the chaos of distant empires. Yet the very ingenuity that sustained these cities also sowed the seeds of their downfall. As populations grew, the fagaras required constant maintenance, and over centuries, the water tables began to drop. Sand infiltrated the tunnels, choking the lifelines that had made the impossible possible. By the time Arab historians recorded the Garamantes in the 8th century, they were already fading into legend, their fortresses left to the wind, their reservoirs buried under drifts. The lesson is hauntingly modern. Even the most advanced systems are fragile when nature shifts the rules. Today, satellite imagery reveals the full scope of what was lost. The ruins of Garama, their capital, show streets laid out in precise grids, while outlying forts stand sentinel over long dry oases. Some walls still bear the scorch marks of ancient battles, but the greater enemy left no such marks. The desert didn't attack, it simply waited, patient and relentless for human effort to wane. These ruins aren't just relics of the past, they're mirrors. In a world facing rising temperatures and dwindling resources, the Sahara's lost fortresses ask us a silent question. How long can any civilization hold back the sands of time? One fortress, perched on a rocky outcrop in Algeria's Tassili Enaja region, offers a particularly poignant clue. Its watchtower overlooks a valley that was once a lush grassland, now bleached to stone and dust. On the tower's inner wall, someone carved a single word in ancient Tifinagh script, Tamashek, "We were here." It's a declaration that outlasted the people who wrote it, a voice from the past insisting on being remembered. The Sahara's fortresses may be crumbling, but their message isn't. They remind us that resilience isn't about permanence. It's about the stubborn, beautiful act of leaving proof that you tried. The Cave of Swimmers feels like a paradox frozen in stone, human figures with outstretched arms, legs kicking as if suspended mid-stroke, painted onto rock walls in the heart of the Libyan desert. When Hungarian explorer Laszlo Olmosy first stumbled upon these images in the 1930s, The sheer impossibility of them left him speechless. Here, in a landscape where rain might not fall for decades, ancient artists had depicted people doing something unthinkable, swimming. The answer lies not in the cave's present, but in its distant past. These paintings, dating back nearly 7,000 years, are snapshots from a time when the Sahara wasn't a sea of sand, but a sprawling savanna crisscrossed by rivers and dotted with lakes. What makes these images so haunting isn't just their vibrancy, ochre and white pigments still glowing against the rock, but the stories they tell without words. The swimmers aren't alone. Around them, artists painted giraffes stretching their necks toward unseen trees, herds of antelope mid-gallop, even hippos wallowing in water. This wasn't just art, it was a testament to a way of life. Archaeologists believe the cave served as a resting place for nomadic tribes following seasonal rains, its walls acting as a communal canvas where generations added their own chapters. One figure, arms raised not in swimming but in what looks like celebration, might depict a dance. Another, surrounded by fish, could be a fisherman's boast. These aren't static images, they're alive with motion, as if the artists wanted to capture not just scenes, but the very pulse of their world. The real magic lies in the science behind the art. Today, the cave sits hundreds of miles from the nearest significant body of water, but sediment cores drilled from nearby basins reveal pollen from grasses and acacia trees, while fossilized fish bones confirm the presence of ancient lakes. Climate models suggest the Sahara underwent a dramatic transformation around 5,000 years ago, as shifting weather patterns turned fertile land to dust. The Cave of Swimmers, then, is more than a gallery. It's a climate record, a warning etched in pigment. Those joyful figures, frozen mid-stroke, are unknowingly documenting the last gasps of their green world. Modern technology has added eerie layers to the mystery. Multispectral imaging has uncovered previously invisible details, handprints hidden under layers of paint, suggesting the artists signed their work. Some figures, barely noticeable to the naked eye, appear to be holding tools or weapons, and in one shadowy corner, a figure painted in stark black seems to float upside down, a drowning victim or perhaps a ritualistic symbol lost to time. The cave refuses to give up all its secrets. What resonates most deeply is the cave's quiet defiance. The artists couldn't have known their world was drying up, that the lakes where they swam would vanish under dunes. Yet they painted not with fear but with joy, a celebration of life in all its fluid, fleeting beauty. The Cave of Swimmers doesn't just challenge our idea of deserts, it challenges our idea of time. Those figures aren't relics, they're mirrors reflecting a truth as urgent now as it was millennia ago, that the earth beneath our feet is never as permanent as it seems. The Sahara was once a place where children splashed in rivers. Who's to say it won't be again? The Silk Road wasn't just a path, it was a living, breathing network of stories. And where were those stories more vivid than in the oasis cities that dotted its route? Take Lulan, a bustling hub that once sat at the crossroads of China and Central Asia. Today, its ruins rise like ghosts from the Taclomacken desert, their wooden beams bleached white by centuries of sun. But step inside the remnants of a Lulan home, and you'll find traces of lives abruptly interrupted. A half-woven basket still holding strands of hemp, a child's toy carved from camel bone left on a doorstep, even a kitchen where the ashes of the last fire cling to the hearth. These aren't just artifacts, they're frozen moments preserved by the same arid climate that turned the surrounding rivers to dust. What's striking about Lulan and its sister city Nia is how cosmopolitan they were. Excavations have uncovered documents written in Kharosthi script, a language from ancient India alongside Chinese silk and Greco-Buddhist art. A single trash heap might hold Persian coins, Tibetan prayer beads, and Roman glassware. These were places where a Sogdian merchant could haggle over spices with a Eiger trader in the morning, then share a meal with a monk from Gandhara by evening. The sand didn't just preserve objects, it preserved connections, proving that globalization isn't a modern invention. Then there are the mummies. In the cemeteries of Nia, archaeologists unearthed bodies so well preserved their eyelashes still flutter in the desert wind. One young woman, dubbed the Beauty of Lulan, wore a felt hat and woolen cloak dyed vivid red, her features distinctly Caucasian despite being buried in Western China. Her presence, along with others like her, upends old assumptions about the Silk Road's demographics. These weren't just trade routes, they were highways for people, ideas, and even DNA, weaving together populations from across the known world. But why did these vibrant cities fall? The answer lies in the fragile balance between humans and nature. Lulan's death knell came when the Tarim River changed course, leaving its canals dry and its fields parched. Nia's end was slower, a combination of shifting trade routes and creeping dunes that swallowed streets whole. The very oases that gave these cities life turned traitor, their waters retreating as climate patterns shifted. It's a humbling reminder, civilizations that conquer distance can still be undone by a change in the wind. Rediscovering these cities has been like piecing together a shattered mosaic. A scrap of paper bearing a love poem in Sanskrit, a wooden tablet detailing a lawsuit over a missing camel. Each fragment adds depth to our understanding of the Silk Road, revealing it not as a monolithic East meets West narrative, but as a messy, vibrant tapestry of individual lives. The desert, often seen as a barrier, was actually the glue, its harshness forcing travelers to rely on oasis towns, creating the collisions of culture that shaped history. Now, as satellite imaging reveals more buried settlements beneath the dunes, we're left with a tantalizing thought. If places like Lulan could vanish so completely, what other crossroads of civilization might still lie hidden, waiting for the sand to shift one more time? The Silk Road's lost cities challenge us to rethink borders, not just on maps but in our minds. After all, when a single grave can hold a Zoroastrian amulet, a Buddhist prayer scroll, and a cross carved in Syriac, maybe we've been telling the story of human connection all wrong. From high above, the deserts of the Middle East reveal a sprawling network of stone walls arranged in strange, geometric patterns that look almost like children's kites etched into the earth. These are the desert kites, enigmatic structures so massive they can stretch for miles, their converging walls narrowing into deep pits or enclosures. Built over 5,000 years ago by civilizations lost to time, they've puzzled archaeologists for decades. Were they colossal hunting traps, guiding wild gazelles into deadly shoots? Sacred spaces for rituals under the open sky, or something even more unexpected? The sheer scale of these constructions defies imagination. In Jordan's Black Desert, some kite walls run uninterrupted for nearly 12 miles, their stones carefully placed without mortar, surviving millennia of scorching heat and howling winds. What's astonishing isn't just their size, it's their precision. The walls often follow natural terrain, funneling animals toward drop-offs or hidden pits with an almost intuitive understanding of animal behavior. Researchers have found bones of gazelles, ibex, and even onagers piled in these enclosures, suggesting the kites were part of an elaborate, communal hunting system. Imagine groups of ancient hunters working in unison, driving herds across miles of open desert toward these silent stone snares, their success meaning the difference between survival and starvation. But here's where the mystery deepens. Not all kites fit this theory. In Armenia, similar structures sit far from migration routes, their walls too low to corral animals. Some enclose burial mounds or align with celestial events, hinting at a ritual purpose. Then there's the social implication. Building these required coordination on a staggering scale. Who organized hundreds of people to move thousands of tons of stone across such distances? Was this the work of centralized kingdoms or nomadic tribes passing down knowledge through generations? Modern technology has only added more questions. Satellite imagery reveals previously unknown kites hidden under lava fields in Saudi Arabia, their walls buried under centuries of volcanic rock. LiDAR scans in Syria show intricate channels connecting kites to ancient water sources, suggesting they might have doubled as early irrigation systems. And in one haunting discovery, a kite in Jordan was found with a row of standing stones at its entrance, each carved with symbols resembling tally marks, a record of hunts or perhaps offerings to unseen forces. What's undeniable is the kite's testament to human adaptability. In landscapes where water was scarce and survival precarious, these structures represent a triumph of collective ingenuity. They remind us that the desert wasn't just a backdrop to history, it was a collaborator, its harshness shaping the creativity of those who dared to thrive within it. The kites whisper a challenge across the ages. Sometimes the greatest mysteries aren't hidden in tombs or temples, but right under our feet, waiting for us to change our perspective and see them anew. The legend of King Solomon's mines has tantalized treasure hunters and scholars for centuries, a story of unimaginable wealth buried somewhere beneath the desert sands, waiting to be uncovered. Ancient texts describe gold, silver, and precious stones flowing into Jerusalem during Solomon's reign, fueling speculation that his kingdom controlled vast mining operations. But where were these legendary sites? The answer might lie in a place like Timna, a windswept valley in southern Israel where the ground is scarred with thousands of ancient mine shafts. Here, archaeologists have uncovered not just copper deposits, but evidence of a thriving industrial complex dating back to the 10th century BC, precisely when Solomon would have ruled. What makes Timna so compelling isn't just its age, but its sophistication. The mines weren't crude pits, they were feats of engineering, with vertical shafts plunging deep into the earth and horizontal tunnels following rich veins of copper ore. Workers used fire-setting techniques, heating the rock with fire, then dousing it with water to fracture it, a method so effective it was still in use centuries later. The slag heaps left behind reveal a startling efficiency. These miners extracted every gram of metal they could. Even more telling are the remnants of a fortified smelting camp, complete with furnaces and workshops where raw ore was transformed into ingots. This wasn't just a local operation, it was a hub of industry, possibly supplying bronze to empires across the Levant. Yet the debate rages on, were these Solomon's mines? The Bible mentions a place called Ezion-Geber, where Solomon's fleet docked near copper-rich lands, and Timna fits the geographical clues, but here's where legend and history blur. While Timna's mines were active during Solomon's era, they were likely controlled by the Edomites, a neighboring kingdom. Could Solomon have taxed their trade or even briefly seized control? Or does the link exist only in later folklore, a way to attach a famous name to an already ancient site? The truth might be somewhere in between, a real mining network that grew grander in the telling, its legacy polished like the copper it produced. The search for Solomon's mines stretches far beyond Timna. In Jordan's Fainan region, another massive copper operation bears striking similarities, while in Ethiopia, oral traditions insist the king's gold came from hidden pits in the highlands. Even the Arabian desert has been scoured for clues, with explorers chasing whispers of lost oases where Solomon's traders supposedly bartered. What unites these quests is more than just gold lust. It's the human fascination with bridging myth and reality. Every artifact pulled from the earth, a slag heap, a miner's pick, a hieroglyphic inscription naming a pharaoh who might have traded with Solomon, adds another piece to the puzzle. Perhaps the most poignant discovery in Timna has nothing to do with metal. In one remote cave, archaeologists found a tiny shrine to Hathor, the Egyptian goddess of mining. Amid the soot and rubble, someone had left our offering, a carved stone snake, a symbol of protection. It's a reminder that these mines weren't just about wealth, they were places of sweat, danger, and hope. Whether or not Solomon's hand ever touched these stones, the legend endures because it speaks to something deeper, our eternal hunger to uncover the past secrets, one shovelful of sand at a time. The dry winds of the Taclomacken desert have a way of revealing truths that rewrite history books. In the late 1970s, Chinese archaeologists working near the Tarim Basin stumbled upon something astonishing. Rows of mummies with high noses, light-colored hair, and distinctly European features, their bodies so well preserved in the arid climate that their eyelashes still cast shadows on sunken cheeks. These weren't just any ancient remains, they were time travelers from 4,000 years ago, dressed in colorful woolen garments and leather boots, their graves filled with tools and food offerings that spoke of a sophisticated nomadic culture. The shock wasn't just their preservation, it was their very existence. How did people who looked like they belonged in the Caucasus Mountains end up buried in the heart of Asia, millennia before Marco Polo or the Silk Road? The artifacts buried with these mummies tell a story of unexpected connections. One woman, later dubbed the Beauty of Lulan, wore a felt hat and a finely woven cloak dyed deep red, her hands still clutching a basket of wheat grains. Nearby, a man was buried with a saddle and a wooden cart, his body wrapped in a woolen shawl patterned with zigzags that echoed designs found in ancient Ukraine. Even their DNA added to the mystery genetic testing revealed ancestry linked to the Black Sea region, proving these weren't just isolated wanderers, but part of a vast early migration that spanned continents. This wasn't just a chance encounter between East and West. It was evidence of a forgotten highway of people, goods, and ideas threading across Eurasia when most histories assumed the world was still fragmented. What's truly groundbreaking is how these finds shatter old assumptions. For centuries, scholars imagined ancient China as a civilization sealed behind mountains and deserts, developing in isolation until the Silk Road opened it to the world. The Taclomacken mummies prove otherwise. Their woolen textiles, woven with techniques identical to those used in Bronze Age Europe, suggest trade networks stretching thousands of miles. Their cheese-making tools, some of the oldest ever found, hint at shared pastoral traditions across the steppes. Even their languages, deciphered from inscriptions on wooden tablets, belong to the Tucherian family, a branch of Indo-European once spoken as far east as Gansu. These weren't outliers, they were pioneers, bridging worlds we thought had never met. Yet the greatest mystery isn't how they got there, it's why they vanished. By the time the Han Dynasty rose 2,000 years later, these Caucasian features had largely disappeared from the region. Did they assimilate into local populations? Were they pushed out by shifting climates or rival tribes? The desert hasn't given up all its answers, but standing in a museum in Urumqi today, face to face with the Beauty of Lulan, her lips still faintly red with ochre, you can't help but feel the weight of her legacy. She and her people were the unacknowledged architects of globalization, proof that the urge to explore, trade, and connect is as old as humanity itself. The Taclomacken mummies don't just belong to China or Europe, They belong to the world, a reminder that borders are fleeting, but the threads that bind us endure. Scattered across a remote stretch of the Libyan desert lies something that shouldn't exist: sheets of translucent yellow-green glass, some as large as dinner plates, others crushed into jewel-like fragments that catch the sun like frozen fire. This isn't ordinary glass, it's Libyan desert glass, a substance so pure it rings like crystal when struck, and so mystifying that even NASA has studied it. The first puzzle: it's found nowhere else on Earth in such quantities, strewn across hundreds of miles of barren sand like the aftermath of some celestial event. The second: it takes temperatures hotter than the surface of the sun to create glass this pure, around 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit. So what force, natural or otherwise, could have unleashed such fury upon this lonely corner of the Sahara? The leading theory points to the sky. Around 29 million years ago, a meteorite or comet may have exploded just above the desert, its shockwave liquefying the sand instantly. Evidence comes from tiny bubbles trapped in the glass zircon crystals, transformed into rare minerals that only form under extreme pressure. But there's a hitch. No crater has ever been found, leaving some scientists to argue for an airburst, a phenomenon where a space rock detonates before hitting the ground, like the Tunguska event in Siberia. Others propose an even wilder idea. Could this glass be the result of an ancient natural nuclear reaction, a uranium-rich patch of Earth igniting spontaneously? The debate rages because the stakes are high. This isn't just geology. It's a window into cosmic disasters that could threaten Earth again. Yet the story gets stranger when humans enter the picture. Thousands of years after the glass formed, someone picked up a piece and carved it into the centerpiece of a pharaoh's jewelry. Tutankhamun's pectoral scarab, discovered in his tomb, is made not of emerald or jade, but this desert glass. How did Bronze Age artisans working over 1,000 miles from Libya know about this material? The answer lies in trade routes older than the pyramids. Caravans crossing the Sahara likely carried the glass as a curiosity, its otherworldly beauty making it a prized commodity. Imagine a merchant unwrapping a bundle to show Egyptian goldsmiths these strange, sun-colored stones not mined from the earth, but harvested from the surface of a wasteland. Today, the glass still holds secrets. Satellite imagery reveals vast, unexplored fields of it, while lab tests show trace elements that don't match any known meteorite composition. Some fragments even contain metallic streaks, as if something melted alongside the sand. The most haunting detail: nomads tell stories of a fire river that once crossed the desert, a tale that might be folk memory of the cataclysm that birthed the glass. Science and legend intertwine here, reminding us that some mysteries refuse to be neatly solved. The desert glass of Libya isn't just a geological oddity, it's a time capsule holding clues to Earth's violent past and humanity's endless curiosity about the unknown. Every shard is a question. What else is hidden out there, waiting for the right hand to lift it from the sand? The legend of Zerzura begins with a whisper, an Arab folktale passed down through generations, speaking of a whitewashed city hidden somewhere in the vast emptiness of the Libyan desert. Its gates were said to be carved with the image of a bird, and inside, treasures beyond imagining lay guarded by sleeping giants. But what transformed this story from campfire tale to obsession was a single, tantalizing detail. Zerzura wasn't just a mirage. It was a place of water. In a land where thirst could kill faster than any blade, the idea of an untouched oasis, its palms heavy with dates and springs bubbling with cool water, was enough to drive men to madness. The first written account comes from a 15th century manuscript describing Zerzura as a white city like a dove, lying beyond a valley of dunes. By the 19th century, European explorers, already intoxicated by the hunt for lost cities like Timbuktu, seized on the legend. Hungarian Count Laszlo Almasi, the real-life inspiration for the English patient, became convinced Zerzura lay in the Gilf-Kebir Plateau, a labyrinth of sandstone cliffs so remote even Bedouins avoided it. In 1932, he and his team stumbled upon a wadi so lush with vegetation they dubbed it the Wadi of the Little Birds. To Almasi, this was proof. The desert had given up one secret, surely Zerzura was next. Yet the harder they searched, the more elusive the city became. Some explorers returned with stories of crumbling walls half buried in sand, or cave paintings depicting a paradise lost. Others found nothing but scorching winds and disappointment. The twist: many of these discoveries were likely the ruins of actual, if lesser known, oases, places like Dakar or Farafra, abandoned when wells ran dry. The human mind, faced with the Sahara's endless sameness, has a way of shaping shadows into palaces. What makes Zerzura endure isn't just romance, it's science. Satellite imagery has revealed fossilized riverbeds beneath the Sahara, proving the desert was once a green savanna crisscrossed with waterways. Could Zerzura have been real, a holdout from this wetter age? In 2010, archaeologists uncovered the remains of a fortified settlement in Libya's Messac Cetafit, complete with rock art showing giraffes and crocodiles. It wasn't Zerzura, but it was evidence of thriving communities in places now uninhabitable. The desert, it seems, doesn't just hide cities, it rewrites the very definition of where life can flourish. Today, the hunt continues, not with camel caravans but with drones and ground-penetrating radar. Modern adventurers are drawn less by gold than by the puzzle itself, the chance to solve a riddle that has outwitted centuries of seekers. Perhaps Zerzura was never a physical place, but a metaphor for the human spirit. After all, the moment we stop searching for hidden springs in the wasteland is the moment we stop believing in miracles. And the Sahara, with its shifting dunes and stubborn secrets, specializes in miracles. The high desert of New Mexico holds a secret etched into the very bones of the land, a celestial calendar carved in sandstone. At Chaco Canyon, the ancestral Pueblones didn't just build homes, they constructed an observatory without lenses, a temple to the cosmos where walls became markers and shadows transformed into sacred clocks. Imagine standing in the ruins of Pueblo Bonito, the largest great house, as the first sliver of sunlight on the summer solstice slices through a precisely aligned window and strikes a spiral petroglyph on the far cliff. This wasn't accidental architecture. It was mathematics in stone, proof that 1,000 years ago, people living in what we now call a wasteland could predict eclipses, track Venus's cycle, and mark the turning of seasons with staggering accuracy. What's astonishing isn't just their precision, it's their purpose. These weren't abstract stargazers, they were pragmatic scientists whose survival depended on reading the sky. In a land where rain was scarce and growing seasons short, knowing when to plant meant the difference between harvest and hunger. The sun dagger petroglyph at Fajoda but captures this perfectly. Sunlight pierces the rock's crevices, creating dagger-shaped beams that bisect carved spirals only during solstices and equinoxes. But the real genius lies in the subtlety. Smaller spirals nearby track the moon's 18.6-year cycle, a phenomenon European astronomers wouldn't document for centuries. How did the Chacoans achieve this without written language or metal tools? The answer whispers through the canyon: patient observation, generation after generation, turning patterns into knowledge. The scale of their celestial network defies expectation. Chaco's roads, arrow straight and radiating outward for miles, align with lunar standstills, the points where the moon rises farthest north or south. Even the layout of great houses mirrors Orion's belt, their doors positioned to frame specific stars on pivotal nights. Some scholars argue these weren't just practical tools but sacred geometry, blending science and spirituality. A single kiva, a circular ceremonial room, might serve as both a calendar and a church, its four cardinal-facing niches marking solar events while symbolizing the Puebloans' connection to the cosmos. Yet the greatest mystery isn't how they built this astronomical wonder, but why it vanished. By the 13th century, Chaco lay abandoned, its people dispersed. Drought, famine, social upheaval, the canyon keeps its secrets, but their legacy lingers in the night sky. Modern Pueblo elders still recount stories of the hero twins, deities who climbed a celestial ladder to learn the stars' secrets, an echo perhaps of ancestral memories. And on clear nights in Chaco, when the Milky Way stretches like a glittering road across the sky, you can almost hear the whispers of those ancient astronomers, reminding us that the desert isn't just sand and stone. It's a mirror reflecting the infinite above and the ingenuity below. The desert has always been history's most meticulous and most merciless archivist. On one hand, its dry air, scorching heat, and lack of moisture create the perfect conditions to preserve artifacts that would crumble anywhere else. A wooden sandal from 2,000 years ago still bears the imprint of its owner's foot. A papyrus scroll tucked away in a cave remains as legible as the day it was penned. Even delicate fabrics, from silk tunics to linen shrouds, survive with colors still vibrant, as if time itself forgot to touch them. But here's the paradox: while the desert protects these treasures from decay, it also guards them with a fierceness that makes discovery nearly impossible. Ruins lie buried under layers of shifting sand, their locations erased by relentless winds. Entire cities vanish beneath dunes that move like slow, silent waves, swallowing history whole. Now climate change is rewriting the rules of this ancient bargain. Rising temperatures and shifting weather patterns are destabilizing the very environments that once acted as natural museums. In the Atacama Desert, mummies that survived for millennia are now crumbling as humidity creeps into once arid tombs. In the Sahara, ancient rock art is fading under sudden, unseasonable rains. Even the permafrost of high desert plateaus is thawing, exposing organic materials to decay for the first time in centuries. It's a cruel irony. The forces that once preserved these artifacts are now conspiring to destroy them. Archaeologists find themselves in a race against time, armed with technology their predecessors could only dream of. Drones scan vast expanses for buried structures, while ground-penetrating radar reveals hidden chambers without disturbing a single grain of sand. In Jordan's Black Desert, researchers use 3D modeling to digitally reconstruct crumbling fortresses before they collapse entirely. But the challenges are immense. Looters, drawn by rumors of gold or black market collectors, often reach sites first, leaving destruction in their wake. And even well-intentioned excavation can backfire. Opening a sealed tomb might expose its contents to air and light, accelerating deterioration. The dilemma is profound. How do we balance the urgency of discovery with the ethics of preservation? Some argue for leaving certain sites untouched, allowing future technologies to uncover them with less risk. Others push for rapid documentation, fearing that waiting could mean losing these treasures forever. In Egypt's western desert, teams now coat exposed murals with protective gels developed by NASA, originally designed to shield spacecraft from extreme conditions. In Peru, conservators are experimenting with nanotech sprays to reinforce fragile textiles. These innovations offer hope, but they're stopgaps in a battle against an accelerating threat. Perhaps the desert's greatest lesson is humility. For centuries, it has been the silent keeper of humanity's secrets. its sands hiding stories until we were ready to hear them. Now, as those sands shift both literally and metaphorically, we're forced to confront a sobering truth. The past isn't just something we uncover, it's something we must actively protect. The desert's role as custodian was never permanent, and neither is ours. Every artifact saved, every mural scanned, every story recorded is a fragile thread connecting us to those who came before. And in this race against time, the stakes couldn't be higher because once these treasures are gone, they're gone forever. The desert has always guarded its secrets with silence and distance, but today, technology is peeling back the layers of sand like never before. Satellite imaging, once the domain of Cold War spy missions, now reveals the ghostly outlines of ancient cities invisible to the naked eye. In the vast emptiness of the Gobi Desert, algorithms scan high-resolution images for subtle discolorations or geometric patterns, signs of buried walls or roads. One such scan recently uncovered the footprint of a sprawling Silk Road caravanserai, its stables and courtyards mapped in pixels before a single shovel touched the ground. This isn't just progress, it's a paradigm shift. Archaeologists no longer have to rely on luck or folklore to know where to dig. The desert is speaking, and we've finally learned how to listen. Ground-penetrating radar takes the conversation even deeper, sending pulses of energy into the earth and reading the echoes that bounce back. In the dunes of Oman, this technology exposed a network of underground tunnels dating back to the Iron Age, their precise curves suggesting a sophisticated understanding of hydraulics. What's revolutionary isn't just the discovery itself, but how it was made without disturbing a single grain of sand. Traditional excavation, for all its benefits, is destructive. Temples crumble when exposed to sudden changes in humidity. Artifacts fade under sunlight after centuries in darkness. Now we can explore without unearthing, preserving sites for future generations while still unlocking their stories. Drones add another dimension to this quiet revolution. Swarming over sites like the lost city of Yuba, they capture thousands of overlapping photographs, stitching them into 3D models so detailed you can trace the chisel marks on a 2,000-year-old column. In Jordan's Black Desert, drones equipped with thermal cameras detected buried structures by the slight temperature differences between stone and sand, a technique borrowed from search and rescue teams. The real magic happens when these tools converge. Imagine combining satellite data to identify a site, radar to map its layout, and drones to create a virtual tour, all before setting foot on the ground. Archaeology is no longer just about digging, it's about reconstructing entire worlds pixel by pixel. The most exciting breakthroughs, though, might still lie ahead. Artificial intelligence now sifts through mountains of data, spotting patterns humans might miss. In Egypt's western desert, an AI analyzing old excavation records flagged an overlooked cluster of pottery shards, leading to the discovery of a previously unknown Roman-era trading post. Meanwhile, portable DNA sequencers allow researchers to analyze genetic material on site, tracing migrations and relationships in real time. A scrap of leather from a Taclomacken mummy's boot might reveal not just what animal it came from, but what valley that animal grazed in. Yet for all these advancements, the desert retains its mysteries. Technology can map a buried city, but it can't tell us why its inhabitants painted their walls cobalt blue or what songs they sang when the rains failed. The human element, the stories, the rituals, the quiet acts of resilience still demands the patience and intuition of scholars willing to sit in the dust, brushing sand from a child's toy or a faded love letter. The tools have changed, but the mission remains the same: to hear the whispers of those who came before us and to ensure their voices aren't lost to the wind. What's clear is this: The next decade of desert archaeology won't just fill gaps in history, it will redraw the map. Every unassuming patch of sand could hide a library, a temple, or a marketplace where languages and ideas once collided. The desert, it turns out, was never empty. It was just waiting for us to catch up. There's a moment in every archaeologist's journey when the thrill of discovery collides with a sobering question: who does this past truly belong to? Take the case of the Rosetta Stone, a slab of black basalt that unlocked the secrets of ancient Egypt, found by French soldiers in 1799, seized by the British, and now displayed in London's British Museum. It's become a lightning rod for debate. Egypt has asked for its return for decades, arguing it's an irreplaceable piece of their cultural soul. But museums counter that sharing such artifacts globally fosters education and unity. This isn't just about one stone, it's about who gets to tell humanity's story and whose voice matters most. The heart of the issue lies in power and perspective. For centuries, artifacts were treated like trophies, hauled off to foreign museums by colonial expeditions with little regard for the communities they came from. The Parthenon marbles, stripped from Athens by Lord Elgin in the early 1800s, remain in London despite Greece's pleas, but the tide is turning. Countries like Nigeria have successfully reclaimed thousands of Benin bronzes, looted during British raids in 1897. Each restitution is more than a homecoming. It's a correction of historical wrongs, a recognition that cultural heritage isn't just academic, it's deeply personal. Indigenous communities are reshaping the conversation in even more profound ways. In Australia, Aboriginal elders now co-lead excavations of ancestral sites, deciding which artifacts can be studied and which must remain undisturbed. When ancient Puebloan ruins were found on a Navajo reservation, tribal leaders worked with archaeologists to document the site, then reburied it to honor their spiritual beliefs. These collaborations reveal a truth often overlooked. The past isn't a static relic to be owned. It's a living thread woven into identity, language, and tradition. Technology offers surprising middle ground. High-resolution scans allow artifacts to be repatriated digitally, with 3D replicas displayed abroad while originals stay home. The Nefertiti bust in Berlin, for example, has been meticulously copied for Egyptian museums, but some argue this is a compromise, not justice. Can a scan truly replace the presence of a sacred object in its homeland? The debate forces us to confront uncomfortable questions about access, privilege, and whether museums are temples of learning or monuments to appropriation. The future of archaeology may lie in a radical idea: stewardship over ownership. Imagine a world where the gold of Great Zimbabwe rotates between African and European museums, or where Native American tribes tour their artifacts globally, but on their own terms. This isn't just idealism, it's already happening. The Icelandic government loans Viking treasures to Scandinavia for exhibitions, but retains final say over their care. The key is consent. When the Mimbres people's descendants in New Mexico approved a museum display of their 1,000-year-old pottery, they included modern interpretations alongside the ancient shards, bridging past and present. Perhaps the greatest lesson lies not in the artifacts themselves, but in the conversations they spark. Every pottery shard, every inscribed tablet carries two histories, the one from its time of creation and the one from its journey to the present. The desert doesn't care who owns a statue or a scroll, but it does teach us that nothing survives forever without respect. As we uncover these buried treasures, we're also uncovering our own values, our willingness to listen, and our capacity to share the stage with voices too long silenced. The sands will keep giving up their secrets, but it's up to us to decide how those secrets are honored. Some mysteries refuse to be solved, lingering at the edges of human understanding like mirages that vanish when you draw near. In the deserts of Namibia, strange circular patches dot the landscape, bare rings of earth surrounded by lush grass, perfectly spaced as if plotted by some unseen hand. Locals call them fairy circles, but science still debates their origin. Are they the work of termites organizing their colonies with geometric precision? The result of competing plants waging underground wars for water, or something even more inexplicable? Even satellite imagery and decades of research haven't settled the argument. These eerie formations seem almost alive, shifting over time, daring us to unravel their secret. Then there's the Baltic Sea anomaly, a sonar image that set the world ablaze with speculation. Discovered in 2011 off Sweden's coast, the strange, circular structure with its straight edges and stair-like formations looked unnaturally precise. Some whispered it was a sunken UFO, while others argued for a glacial deposit or a forgotten World War II relic. But here's where it gets stranger. Divers reported electronic equipment malfunctioning near the site, and samples retrieved contained metals not typically found in nature. Scientists remain divided. Could it be a natural geological oddity or evidence of something far older or far more alien? The desert isn't the only place that hides its secrets, but its vast emptiness seems to amplify the mystery, as if the landscape itself enjoys the puzzle. And what of the moving stones of Death Valley? In California's racetrack playa, heavy rocks leave long, meandering trails in the cracked mud without any human or animal intervention. For years, this phenomenon defied logic. Then, in 2014, researchers caught the culprit on camera, thin sheets of ice forming overnight, then breaking apart and sliding in the wind, pushing the rocks like nature's own sleight of hand. Yet even with an answer, the magic remains. The desert doesn't give up its secrets easily, and sometimes the explanation only deepens the wonder. Perhaps most haunting are the desert's ghostly echoes of sound. In certain dunes, like those in the Sahara or the Gobi, the sand itself seems to sing, a low, resonant hum that vibrates through your bones. Scientists call it booming dunes, attributing it to synchronized sand grains sliding in harmonic frequencies. But stand alone in those vast, empty stretches when the sound begins, and it's hard not to feel like you're hearing the desert's voice, a language we're only beginning to decode. These enigmas remind us that for all our technology and knowledge, some truths remain just out of reach. The desert, with its shifting sands and endless horizons, is the perfect keeper of such mysteries, patient, silent, and utterly indifferent to our curiosity. Maybe that's the real lesson. Not every question needs an answer. Some wonders exist to humble us, to keep the world strange and full of possibility. After all, what's a desert without a little magic? The same deserts that have safeguarded humanity's treasures for millennia are now turning against them. As global temperatures climb, the delicate balance that preserved tombs, temples, and artifacts for thousands of years is unraveling. In places like the Atacama, where the driest air on Earth once mummified bodies with near-perfect precision, creeping humidity is causing skin to slough off ancient bones and painted murals to blister like sunburned flesh. But the threat isn't just moisture, it's the desert's fury unleashed. Stronger winds whip across loosened topsoil, scouring delicate petroglyphs into blurry shadows of their former selves. In Egypt's western desert, sandstorms now strip protective layers from Roman-era frescoes at an alarming rate, their vibrant blues and golds fading to ghostly outlines before archaeologists can intervene. Looting has become a crisis of equal scale. As shifting dunes reveal long-buried sites, opportunistic treasure hunters descend with metal detectors and shovels, drawn by the booming black market for antiquities. In Sudan, where the Nile's ancient kingdoms built pyramids to rival Egypt's, satellite imagery shows hundreds of freshly dug pits around archaeological zones, each one a crime scene where artifacts are ripped from their context, their stories lost forever. The irony is bitter. Climate change exposes these treasures only for human greed to snatch them away. Even well-meaning tourists play a role. The very footsteps that crumble fragile adobe walls at Chaco Canyon or the Nazca Lines are multiplied by thousands each year as rising temperatures make desert travel more accessible. Preservationists are fighting back with ingenuity. In Jordan's Petra, conservators coat sandstone facades with nanosilica, a liquid glass that strengthens porous rock without altering its appearance. Teams in Peru's coastal deserts deploy 3D scanners to create digital twins of vulnerable sites, ensuring that even if the originals crumble, their details survive in binary code. Perhaps most crucially, local communities are being trained as guardians of their own heritage. Tuareg nomads in Mali now monitor remote rock art sites with smartphone apps, reporting new cracks or vandalism in real time. These efforts are noble, but they're racing against a clock ticking faster every season. The stakes transcend archaeology. Desert sites aren't just time capsules, they're climate records. The same layers of sediment that hide pottery shards also hold pollen samples, animal bones, and charcoal remnants that reveal how past civilizations adapted or failed when their environments changed. When a tomb erodes, we lose more than art. We lose data that could help us survive our own ecological crossroads. The Sahara's abandoned Roman forts whisper warnings about water management. The melted permafrost of Mongolia's Gobi surrenders birch bark letters describing droughts that toppled empires. These aren't relics, they're lessons. Yet there's a cruel paradox at work. The technologies accelerating climate change, drones, satellites, AI, are also our best tools for salvation. In Morocco, researchers use machine learning to predict which areas will be most vulnerable to erosion in the next decade, allowing preemptive stabilization of at-risk ruins. Meanwhile, blockchain trials in Iraq let legitimate artifact sales be tracked, choking the black market's oxygen. But no innovation can replace what's already vanishing. The real tragedy isn't just the loss of objects, but the silencing of voices. Every faded inscription, every looted mosaic, was a message from someone who believed their story mattered enough to endure. As the sands shift and the heat rises, we're left to wonder, how many chapters of human history will dissolve before we learn to listen? The desert doesn't give up its secrets easily, but when it does, it's often because someone who knows the land intimately has been listening. Take the case of the Meroe pyramids in Sudan, where local cattle herders led archaeologists to a royal burial site by recounting generations-old stories about the hill that shines at dawn. Their directions, passed down through oral tradition, pinpointed the exact spot where the morning sun glinted off a hidden capstone. This wasn't luck, it was the result of deep, place-based knowledge accumulated over centuries. Yet too often, these collaborations end with the discovery, leaving indigenous stewards out of the conversation about what happens next. The future of archaeology isn't just about unearthing the past, it's about who gets to decide how that past is understood, preserved, and shared. Real progress is happening where science treats traditional knowledge as equal to academic training. In Australia's Martu country, Aboriginal elders work alongside archaeologists using a two-way tracking system, combining GPS coordinates with dreaming tracks, ancestral narratives that map the landscape's sacred and practical significance. Together, they've located rock art and tools missed by previous surveys, all while ensuring culturally sensitive sites remain protected. One elder, when shown a drone map of a potential dig site, immediately recognized a cluster of stones as a women's ceremonial ground, information absent from any database but critical to avoiding disrespect. These partnerships don't just yield better science, they heal historical wounds by affirming that indigenous voices matter in the telling of their own heritage. The benefits extend beyond ethics. Local communities offer living context that transforms artifacts from objects into stories. When a team in the Andes uncovered a bundle of knotted Inca cords called kippas, it was Quechua weavers who deciphered their patterns by comparing them to traditional textile techniques. Similarly, Bedouin guides in Jordan's Wadi Rum have identified ancient rock inscriptions as grazing markers, signposts for seasonal pastures that still hold value today. This isn't just helpful trivia, it's a paradigm shift. Archaeology has long treated cultures as extinct specimens to be dissected, but when descendants contribute, the past becomes a continuum rather than a corpse. Sustainability is the most urgent payoff. From Peru to Namibia, community-led tourism initiatives are proving that preservation can be economically viable without looting or exploitation. In Oman's Dhofar region, tribes once struggling with drought now run guided tours to frankincense groves and Neolithic tombs, using profits to fund local schools and conservation. Contrast this with the fate of unchecked commercial digs, where artifacts vanish into private collections and sites crumble from neglect. The lesson is clear: when people see their heritage as an asset rather than a target, everyone wins. Yet challenges persist. Well-intentioned laws sometimes backfire, like in Mexico, where strict antiquities regulations unintentionally criminalize rural farmers who stumble upon relics while plowing. Other times, academic bureaucracy slows collaboration to a crawl, as seen when Navajo leaders waited years for clearance to rebury ancestral remains held in university storage. The solution isn't just inclusion, it's equity. Projects like the Zuni Heritage and Historic Preservation Office, entirely tribally managed, show what's possible when control rests with the community. Their museum doesn't just display pottery shards, it hosts language classes and storytelling nights, making archaeology a living practice rather than a relic behind glass. The sands will keep revealing their treasures, but the real measure of progress won't be how much we find. It's who gets to hold the shovel and who gets to write the labels. From the Australian outback to the Sahara's edge, a new generation of archaeologists is learning that the most powerful tool isn't a trowel or satellite image. It's trust. When a Tuareg elder points to a seemingly blank stretch of desert and says, "Dig here," that's not a guess. It's a library whispering its catalogue after centuries of silence. The future of discovery belongs to those smart enough to listen. The ruins of Petra and the manuscripts of Timbuktu aren't just relics, they are masterclasses in human resilience. Look closely at how the Nabateans thrived in one of the driest places on Earth. Their water systems weren't just functional, they were visionary. By carving channels into cliff faces and funneling flash floods into hidden cisterns, they turned a desert into an oasis. That's not just engineering, it's a survival manifesto. Fast forward to today, and their techniques are being revived in drought-stricken regions, proving that ancient innovation can still quench modern thirst. Then there's Timbuktu, where knowledge didn't just survive the desert, it defied it. When invaders threatened their libraries, guardians buried texts in clay jars or hid them in caves, trusting the dry air to preserve ink that would have faded elsewhere. This wasn't just preservation, it was rebellion. In an era when information is often fleeting, their commitment to safeguarding ideas feels almost prophetic. Now, as digital archivists race to save those same manuscripts from climate change, the parallel is striking. The fight to protect wisdom never ends, whether the enemy is sand or server crashes. What ties these stories together is adaptability. The Garamantes of the Sahara dug 1,000-mile tunnels to tap hidden aquifers. The ancestral pueblones of Chaco Canyon tracked celestial cycles to predict rainfall. These weren't just solutions, they were transformations of limitation into opportunity. Today, as rising temperatures and shrinking resources test our own ingenuity, their blueprints matter more than ever. Consider how modern architects are studying wind towers in ancient Persian deserts to design zero-energy cooling systems, or how drought-resistant crops are being developed using seeds found in Egyptian tombs. The past isn't just a mirror, it's a toolkit. But resilience isn't just about technology, it's about community. When the Silk Road city of Lulan vanished under shifting sands, its multicultural markets and multilingual treaties showed how diversity can be a lifeline. In a globalized world facing climate migration, that lesson resonates deeply. The desert's lost cities remind us, collapse often comes not from external threats, but from fractured trust. The societies that endured were those that shared knowledge, like the Nabateans trading hydrology secrets, or the librarians of Timbuktu passing down custodianship through generations. Perhaps the most humbling insight is how these civilizations measured success. Their greatest monuments weren't just tombs or temples, they were systems that sustained life. Petra's gardens, Timbuktu's schools, Chaco's observatories, all were built with an eye toward enduring beyond the builders. That's the real challenge for our era, to innovate not just for today, but for the unseen crises of tomorrow. The desert's whispers are clear. Survival isn't about conquering nature, but collaborating with it. And if a library can outlast a millennium of sandstorms, or a water channel can quench a city for centuries, maybe our own solutions are closer than we think. You don't need a degree in archaeology or a fedora to uncover history. Some of the most groundbreaking desert discoveries have started with ordinary people who simply showed up. Across the globe, citizen science programs are turning enthusiasts into collaborators, offering hands-on roles in everything from surveying remote sites to cataloging artifacts. Take the Adopt a Petroglyph initiative in New Mexico, where volunteers monitor ancient rock art for erosion, using smartphone apps to upload real-time data to researchers. Or the University of Arizona's Desert Digs program, where weekend warriors join professional teams to sift through layers of sediment at Hohokam sites, their finds contributing to academic papers. These aren't just token experiences, they're vital lifelines for underfunded projects, proving that passion can be as valuable as a PhD when it comes to preserving the past. For those craving deeper immersion, volunteer digs offer a backstage pass to history in the making. Organizations like Earthwatch pair participants with ongoing excavations, from tracing Roman trade routes in Jordan's deserts to documenting prehistoric settlements in Oman. Picture yourself brushing sand from a centuries-old cooking hearth, or holding a pottery shard that hasn't seen sunlight since its owner dropped it. The thrill isn't just in the discovery, it's in the connection. One volunteer in Egypt's Dhaka Oasis recounted the moment her team uncovered a child's leather sandal, its tiny imprint still visible. Suddenly, you're not just studying history. You're touching a life, but adventure isn't the only way to make an impact. Ethical tourism sustains local communities while protecting fragile sites. In Morocco's Dra Valley, guided tours led by Berber elders funnel profits directly into conservation efforts, preventing looting by offering jobs tied to preservation. Meanwhile, museums worldwide rely on memberships and donations to fund everything from 3D scanning technology to climate-controlled storage. Even small actions, like choosing replicas over questionable antiquities at souvenir shops, help starve the black market that fuels destruction. The most unexpected entry point, your own backyard. Digital archaeology platforms like Zooniverse's Desert Caves project let anyone analyze satellite images for hidden structures from their couch. A teacher in Norway recently spotted a potential Neolithic settlement in Sudan's Bayuda Desert just by flagging unusual patterns on her lunch break. Others transcribe crumbling field notes or stitch together drone footage into 3D models. These micro-contributions add up. Crowdsourcing has already relocated lost pyramids and identified forgotten caravan stops. The desert doesn't discriminate between seasoned scholars and curious newcomers. Every shovel of dirt turned, every artifact logged, every story shared is a thread in the tapestry of human history. Whether you're kneeling in the dust at a dig site or clicking through satellite scans at home, you're part of something bigger, a chain of discoveries stretching back to the first explorers who wondered what lay beneath the sand. The tools have changed, but the mission remains: to listen carefully, dig thoughtfully, and pass the stories on. After all, the next great find might not wait for an expert. It might just be waiting for you. The desert has always been a paradox, a place of emptiness that overflows with memory. As we close this journey through the 25 greatest discoveries buried by desert sands, it's clear these landscapes are far more than barren expanses. They're the world's most patient historians, safeguarding civilizations that dared to dream in the harshest of places. Think of the child's sandal left behind in Lulan, still cradling the shape of a foot long gone, or the ledger from Timbuktu where a merchant's careful handwriting records a debt unpaid for centuries. These aren't just artifacts, they're echoes. They remind us that every empire, no matter how grand, is just a heartbeat in time, yet their legacies ripple forward, shaping who we are today. What lingers most isn't just the scale of these discoveries, but their intimacy. A love poem scribbled on a palm leaf in the Taclomacken, a single date pit pressed into the floor of a Petra kitchen. These fragments tell us that the people of the past weren't so different from us. They worried about harvests, prayed for rain, laughed with friends, and left behind pieces of their lives without realizing we'd one day hold them up to the light. The desert's greatest gift isn't gold or grand temples. It's the humbling realization that humanity's story is written in ordinary moments as much as extraordinary ones. Yet these treasures come with a responsibility. As climate change accelerates and looting persists, we're racing against time to protect what remains. The same sands that preserved the Dead Sea Scrolls are now threatening to swallow untold wonders before we even know they exist. But there's hope. New technologies like AI and satellite imaging are democratizing discovery, while grassroots efforts empower local communities to safeguard their heritage. The question isn't just what we'll find next, it's whether we'll have the wisdom to listen when the past speaks. So let's carry these stories forward. Share them, debate them, let them ignite your curiosity. Who knows, maybe you'll be the one to spot a strange outline in a satellite image, or stumble upon a pottery shard that changes how we see history. The desert isn't done with us yet. Beneath those shifting dunes lie countless untold chapters, waiting for the right moment to surface. And when they do, they'll remind us once more that even in the starkest landscapes, life finds a way to leave its mark. Now it's your turn. Which of these discoveries resonated most with you? Do you think there are civilizations still hidden beneath the sands? Drop your thoughts below. We're all part of this conversation. And if you've enjoyed unraveling history's mysteries with us, hit subscribe to join our next adventure. The desert has kept its secrets for millennia. Together, let's uncover what's next.